So here's a nice juxtaposition between a regular Norwegian citizen and Kvitraven of the satanic band Gorgoroth. All the band members, did their makeup and spikes and everything in one of their houses, and then we ran from the house to the car because they don't like to be seen like this on the street. This isn't something that they dress up like every day. It's much more of a performance. So there was 30 seconds of Kvitraven standing outside where I was lucky enough to catch a passerby, which was some regular Norwegian woman, and seeing her reaction, which I think sums up the public's opinion of black metal, the Norwegian public's opinion of black metal, which is obviously sort of hatred and disdain, because for many years, every day on the cover of the newspapers and tabloids was, Satanist burns this, black metal that, there's murders and church arsons. And in such a peaceful and nice country, they have obviously gotten a really awful reputation. The same band, Gorgoroth, brought me to Poland with them in 2004 for what was going to become an incredibly infamous concert. Their stage show included 120 freshly decapitated sheep's heads, both on stakes and in barbed wire and scattered around the ground. And 4 huge crucifixes were set on stage. Each one, there was 2 boys and 2 girls hung from the crosses with hoods over their heads, and they were covered in cow's blood. The smell was awful. But the atmosphere was exactly what they wanted, which was just pure blasphemy, which is what Gorgoroth is about. And they definitely achieved their goal. They caused a huge stir all over Europe. The Pope apparently commented on this. They were charged with religious offense, and luckily we were already out of Poland the next day once it hit the papers, and I guess they just can't go back now. One of the guys that I photographed the most is the vocalist who's known as Gall, and who is also considered to be probably the most infamous man of Norway. He's had numerous court cases for kind of bizarre and super violent crimes, most of which were in retaliation for being attacked himself. He claims to never do anything unprovoked. So when I first met Gall, he was he wasn't very receptive to me or to any other journalist/photographer, and I thought that he would be a shell that would never be cracked. But throughout my times with him in Oslo and Bergen, I kind of got to know him a little bit, and he invited me to his house. He lives in a valley on the west coast of Norway, which is named after his family. They've lived there for 10 or 12 generations. He lives in a barn-like house, and about a block up the dirt road his parents live, and a little bit beyond that his grandparents, aunt and uncle. So it's his entire family only, with the closest town being a tiny town maybe 20 or 30 miles away. Another very interesting thing about Gall is that he's a great painter, but I think he's exhibited his work once about 15 years ago, and then I guess realized he didn't want to show anybody else or didn't want to do any further exhibits, but he let me photograph some of his paintings. So this photograph here is a snapshot I took in his studio with some of his work. So we see Gall in his environment here in the woods. He's always photographs much better in nature. He seems much more comfortable there than in an urban environment. Both times I stayed with Gall, he took me on these really brutal hikes way up into the mountains. On the ground at his house, it was rainy and kind of cool, but as we got further and further up, it turned into brutal snowstorm, and you couldn't even see 10 feet in front of you because it was snowing so hard. This photograph you see here is an image of Gall walking towards a cabin which his grandparents built. They apparently brought each stone and piece of wood down from the mainland all the way up the same route that we had just taken on that hike. In 2004, I booked a photo session with 1349, who is one of Norway's best current black metal bands, and Frost, their drummer, remembered visiting some cave, which is about an hour outside of Oslo, when he was a child. So we set off to try to find this cave because he thought it'd be really, really cool to photograph in there. After much driving and hiking along the waterfront, we found a small opening, which apparently was the cave he remembered from childhood, and we went into this cave with no other light source than just their torches. And Frost breathed fire for me. I took a few photos in pitch black. It wasn't the most ideal setting, but it was. It turned out to be really magical, and the photos were used on a few of their record covers and in many other places.